That's why I just encourage people to try, because you'll start out and you'll grow like one plant and you'll be like, oh, my baby, and you'll take care of it, and it'll satisfy something inside of you. First off, it'll get you right here in the soul. And then you'll taste it and you will be like, I did this. And then you'll have this sense of satisfaction and you'll realize that, wow, this actually tastes good and this makes me feel good. And then next year you've got 2 or 3 plants, or maybe a whole container garden. Start and do what you can do wherever you are. If you're in an apartment, grow a container garden. If you're renting, see if your landlord will let you put a garden in. If you're own your own property, for the love of Pete, go out and play in the dirt.
This is the Farm Hop Life Podcast, a traveling homestead family. I'm Matt DeRosier. On the Farm Hop Life Podcast, we learn what it takes to grow your own food from everyday people. Could be a college student, grows tomatoes and salad greens on their apartment patio, a former VP of marketing for Del Taco now raising cattle in Montana, or someone who hasn't had a homestead in over 10 years. This show is aimed at teaching you what it takes to make homesteading work for you, that we all make mistakes, we all have bad days, but we can reach out and help one another thrive, and giving you the confidence needed to go feed yourself.
I've had a hectic afternoon coming home from work, but you've had a hectic couple of days. Mine's a little bit shorter, so I'll share what happened within like the last couple hours, and then you can share the last couple days. Yours sounds nuts. I get home and I call my parents, and so I'm like, they haven't been here in a couple of weeks because they live in a different state. So I'm like showing them around. I'm like, whoa, like check this out. Like there's a couple of snakes here on the property, and I found one little one last year, like almost nothing, and these were completely different. And so but they're all tangled up. They're all tangled up.
What are they tangled in?
Like this plastic netting, basically, that's supposed to keep like birds out or something. And so I'm dealing with that, and like my kid's around, and I'm not really familiar with the snakes, so I'm like, I gotta get him inside. And then my daughter's constipated, and so like we had to deal with like getting her to try to go, and she's up so upset. And then I had to put my son down for bed before coming to do this thing. So yeah, it's been a.
Did you figure out what kind of snake you were dealing with?
I think they're gopher snakes. So like they'll eat like squirrels and rabbits. I don't think they eat chickens, but they'll definitely eat chicken eggs.
I was gonna say they might eat chicks. I mean, usually if they'll eat something like that, like a small mammal, they'll take your chicks out. So
yeah, we do not have chicks, but I'm probably gonna try to get them untangled and move them somewhere else, like an open field somewhere else. So
gotcha. We actually so you've had a hectic evening for sure, but we had just craziness. And we talked to our neighbor. Our cat, we thought, had been run over, but she didn't really show any signs of being run over. She just had blood coming from her mouth, and she had run up to the house. And so we actually, after talking to the neighbor, he was like, no, I didn't run her over. I would tell you, so we think maybe she was snake bit. We think that's very possible. We saw a copperhead this season already. And so I think she was doing her morning thing and going out into the tall grass and got her. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm just guessing. We took that really hard. I mean, some of our animals are kind of farm animals and some of our animals are pets. And that was our pet, and that was hard. We'd had her. I mean, we've known her since she was born. She was itty bitty little thing. She was a rescue. So that was traumatic, but nothing like having the skunk come up and spray all of my female rabbits. Oh my gosh. The smell, it doesn't even smell like skunk when it's in your backyard right next to your back door. I mean, it smelled like something was on fire. It was insane. I've got pictures of just dunking rabbits. I was dunking rabbits, just getting them clean. Poor things. They looked miserable. It's been crazy.
Isn't that stuff like, it's like oily, right? Like it's not.
Oh yeah.
I've never been sprayed and haven't had a pet or animal that's gotten sprayed. So I don't know. What do you even do? Can you even fix that?
I hope you never
Dawn
do.
Dish soap?
We used Dawn baking soda, some vinegar, and then afterward, I was very careful. I took a rag with some peroxide and rubbed between their eyes, got their ears. We knocked the stink back really, really well with that. That was fantastic. And we took the leftover water and threw it in the pen where the spraying had occurred, and that knocked the smell out from the pen. So it actually was, it was a lot of work, but it wasn't as bad as I was expecting. It wasn't like
Oh, that's
tomato
good.
juice everywhere and carnage, you know. So that was
Yeah,
good.
that's
But
funny.
yeah, it's been nuts, and I need to get my garden in the ground, you know. And I've got my early spring stuff still out, but I've got broccoli I need to harvest and replace with peppers, and there hasn't been time. It's been chaos. I've got kids graduating, birthdays happening. It's just,
Fish tanks breaking or something like
oh
that.
yeah. But thank God we have a 50-gallon, a 10-gallon, and a 3-gallon tank, and thank God it was the 3-gallon tank. So but it was just nuts. I had just a touch of food poisoning. We never, like, rarely ever eat out, and so we had ordered in because we had the rabbit sprayed by the skunk, and we were like, tonight we're just gonna splurge, right? Oh, it made me ill. And so while
Oh
I'm
no.
absolutely sick in the bathroom, right, my fish tank's emptying right outside the bathroom door. So I come out and there's like, oh, I don't know, an inch. There's an inch of water in that tank. There's like something like 60 little guppies in there flopping around. I'm like, oh my gosh. Oh, I was pouring water. It was crazy. It was crazy. So I don't know. It's been nuts. And I felt like so much of it was just like intense and all at once. And I was like, I just want to do this podcast. Everything stop. This is so cool. I want to be part of this, you know. So thank you for having
Well,
me. I'm super excited.
well, thanks for being here. And yeah, it's no problem to bump it a day or a week or whatever people have time for, because stuff happens all the time. So
Yeah. Life gets
yeah.
crazy.
So you're in East Tennessee, you said,
Yes. Yes, sir.
and
Just right in the
you.
foothills of the mountains.
Hey, that's pretty cool.
Beautiful.
You did own, but you said that you had to move to rent. So, but you're still doing homesteading stuff where you're at.
I am. I am. We happen to have an excellent company we're working with. They're very much like, if you keep up your garden and you take care of it, have your garden. They don't care anything about it.
Nice.
So we started out with just like a container garden. We used 5-gallon buckets the first year. We moved here in March, the first year we got here. So it was like, it was on like Donkey Kong. There was no time to plant or anything, you know. And if we wanted our own veggies, it was container garden. And so it was where we started. And we built raised beds because we cannot till where we are. So everything we have is either a raised bed or no till. And it's been abundant. It's been great. It's a really, really wonderful alternative for renters because it's easily removed as well. I mean,
Sure.
if we needed to move, literally pull everything up, throw some grass seed down, and head on. We're done. You know,
Right.
it's easy peasy. So
Um.
it's nice to
So
be able to do that.
what were you? What was your situation before you moved?
Okay, well, this was a long time ago. Initially, back when I was in my early 20s, I was homesteading back then, and we lived, I mean, I'm not entirely off grid. We still had electricity, we still had running water, but we milked goats, we made our own cheese, we grew a garden, we canned everything, we culled our own chickens, and we did all of that on about an acre and a half. And that was a family of 5. So, like,
Wow.
people need to not be discouraged. Just if you have a little bit of land, you just need to know what to do with it. You know, you need
Mm-hmm.
to really stop and think about, like, how can I set this up to benefit and get the most abundance out of it? And once you do that and you figure it out, it becomes a well-oiled machine. So, I mean, it's going to break down sometimes, those well-oiled machines do, but you can get it there. You just got to keep at it. People think you have to have all this land and you've got to have this and that. There are different layers. You can go,
Mm-hmm.
you know, there are different depths that you can dive into homesteading. It doesn't have to be all in, you know, just get your feet into it, get started.
Right. Are you able to share what the situation was that made you move, or do you want to
Well,
pass over
okay.
that?
No, I'm so sorry. Yeah, keep me on task. I'll wander.
No,
Um,
no, I love wandering. That's fine.
Actually, I had a son that had a genetic disorder, and he had a lot of health issues at birth. And we were talking like just trying to keep the kid alive. He had a feeding tube, he had a heart monitor. I mean, it was rough. We didn't know what was going on. We didn't have a diagnosis. And so it was just for 2 years. I don't think I slept. I really don't think I slept for like 2 years. We kept his crib in the living room, and I just lived on the couch, and it was exhausting. But it was just so much that I couldn't keep up with the homesteading. I also had two toddlers at that time, two toddler girls that I was starting to introduce homeschooling to, starting them young. They were really eager to read and learn. And so of course I want to give them everything I can. So that ended up being kind of what stopped us from homesteading. And we lived a much more traditional life. We still did a garden. We still canned all of that, but I couldn't go out and milk the goats twice a day and all of that. That's labor intensive. So we ended up just kind of stopping all of that. I ended up getting divorced, and that was why I left. We both just let the house go and just went separate ways.
Sure.
Now he went on to live his dream, built himself his little shack near a stream. He's a very happy man, and that's wonderful. And I've gone on to live my dream because, that's not exactly what I want. So I'm living far closer to what I want than what we had originally been working towards. I like to be comfortable.
So if you don't mind sharing a little bit more about your son's birth. So how long was he in the NICU? Because both of my kids were in the NICU. One was 10 days and the other was 2 months.
He was only in the NICU for 10 days as well.
Okay.
He came home, and then we went, I think within, I must have been about a week or so. We ended up back in Children's Hospital, and he was there for 5 more weeks. He ended up having something called a Nissen fundoplication done. So his esophageal sphincter didn't work. And so he would reflux and then aspirate. So they wrapped his stomach around his esophagus and sewed it in place to create an artificial esophageal sphincter. So he actually cannot vomit, which is really interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
Bless his heart. It's rough sometimes because sometimes you need to, and so it does make it scary because there are things like, what if he gets poisoned? So we keep,
Sure.
Activated charcoal and things like that on hand all the time. But, it's just something. He's 16 now. He's actually about to have a birthday. So it's
nice.
We've come a long way.
I was just going to ask how he's doing now. So that's awesome.
Yeah, when he was 6, he was diagnosed with a genetic disorder. So he has interstitial duplication of his 15th chromosome, Q13.3. So basically, the long arm of his 13th chromosome is duplicated. It's got a tiny little duplication in it, and you wouldn't think it would cause all kinds of a mess, but it does. And it happens to be the piece that controls genetic and hereditary schizophrenia. So he's actually schizophrenic.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, pretty interesting stuff. It messes up a whole host of things.
Wow. I
Yep.
suppose if you think about like everything, like all the little bits and pieces, and if there's one little something that's not aligned, man.
Yeah, messes you up. Now, it could be a
Wow.
lot worse if that piece, some people have the piece and it's flipped. So it's upside down. And those people typically have spontaneous death at some point in their life. So yay for not having it
What?
flipped upside down. Yeah.
That is so weird.
Yeah, it's nuts. And I had no idea. They flew us out to Baylor in Texas to study him. He was like the 187th person on Earth diagnosed with it. Now, since then, though, in the last 10 years, there's thousands of people that have been diagnosed, but they didn't know what they were looking for until this genetic stuff started coming out. And it gave us a lot of answered a lot of strange kind of questions that we had about our little man. He's doing great though now, so no complaints. He'll be all right. It's just his path.
Sure. Good. Well, it seems like you have a good attitude and things like look good about it. So overall, like trending up and maintaining course. So that's good.
It is good. It is good. It's interesting, and it's hard to find people that can relate to it. But everybody's got something. Everybody's got something.
That is true. Everybody does have something. So going back a little bit before that, even, how did you get started into homesteading? Like grandma, great grandma.
So I grew up bouncing all over the states. We moved every 2 years. I was born in Wyoming, but I lived in Chicago. I lived in downtown Colorado Springs, which was excellent back in the 90s, let me tell you.
Sure.
It was neat. But nothing to do with farmsteading, nothing to do with growing. we ended up, my mom and my stepdad got a wild hair and decided they were going to move us out to the middle of nowhere, South Dakota. South Dakota. And we went out and lived on a 140-acre farm and learned what farming was really about. And we raised cattle, we raised chickens, we had a sheep named Mint Jelly. I mean, we really went all in. But I didn't learn how to garden then, believe it or not. That was just where I learned animal husbandry. Gardening just came through probably, I would say, my ex-husband. Had a very green thumb and just an innate desire to learn. This is one of those life skills you can teach, like you can be taught, you can learn it. You know what I mean? You don't have to just naturally have a green thumb. You can cultivate a green thumb.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
That sounds crazy. Was your dad in the military or something like that? Like, why was he moving every 2 years?
He was opening new service masters all over the United States. This was back when Service Master was a big company. They were like the cleanup crews that come in and clean up after fires or
Okay.
major disasters. So that he would go around and open the new storefronts, and then they'd move him to the next place, and he would go there and do it. So
Gotcha. Okay, that's an interesting career path or job, I suppose. That's
he's a weird one. He ended up getting out of that and then he ran a group home for years and years and years. So yeah,
All
I don't
right.
know. Not the choices I would make, but it's his life and his path, and do your thing, Daddy-O.
That's funny.
Yeah. Hey, the hoot.
So then you like what motivates you to do it on your own then, to have had the goats, to do the garden, to have the rabbits?
I don't know. I can't explain it. I think because I feel so innately connected to that. We need to know where our food's coming from. When I lived in the inner cities as a kid, people didn't know where their food came from. It comes from the grocery store. Negative, my friends. No, it does not. It came from that farmer's field right there. I don't know. It's just something deeply within me. It's soul satisfying. And I feel better. I've got a mess. I can't eat garbage. I feel horrible. I've got to eat my fruits and veggies and like good clean meat. I just can't treat my body like it's trash. I just can't do it.
I really like that. I actually wrote that one down. It's soul satisfying.
It
Love
is. So I don't know. I walk my garden every morning. I am every morning, especially in the summertime when I don't have to take the kids to school, because we do still use public education here. Our public education system where we live happens to be just top tier. They're just wonderful. And especially it's important. That's my son, by the way. It's very important that he be able to get the best education that can be offered to him. And I don't feel like that would come from me at this point in his education.
Sure.
So, but in the summertime, at 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm out in the garden with a cup of coffee, and that's my time. That is my time. And I'm out there barefoot and in the dirt, and it just feels so good, so satisfying.
Yeah, I really do like trying to do like at least like one small chore in the morning before I have to end up going to work. And it's just, I love that morning time. It's just everything's quiet.
Yes. Yeah, it's the best part of the day for me. I am definitely a morning person. I'm trying to train my body to sleep in on the weekends. I'm not working. It's not working yet, but I'm trying.
You think 2 years without sleep, it would take any opportunity to make up for it?
I think I've already done that. I've done a good deal of sleeping, but naps are underrated. People do not give naps the respect they deserve.
That's true.
You want to really blow your mind? Drink a cup of coffee and take a nap in that order. And then you'll wake up, take a power nap, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Don't go through your full cycle. Just just before you get to REM sleep, get back up. Boy, you want to talk about energy? You'll be going.
I'm gonna have to try that then, because
Give it a
I'm gonna lay down for 20 minutes. Now it's 30 minutes. Now it's an hour. Whoops, it was 2 hours. And then that doesn't happen all the time. So I just try not to, unless I'm really dragging, I try not to take a nap.
Yeah, I hate to be the person that takes the siesta in the middle of the day, but I've got to lay it out. I have to just give me an hour to just lay down,
Sure.
and it,
Yep.
it makes my evenings a lot better. And that's how my day is broken up. It's like, AM is pre-nap and PM is post-nap. I don't know.
That's pretty
It
funny.
works for me. So
So going back to a little bit on the education, you had planned on homeschooling your daughters, and then everything kind of happened, and then they ended up going into the public school system. What did that feel like to you?
well, we homeschooled. My oldest was in fifth grade. My middle daughter was in third grade, and it felt good because they both were reading and I mean, obviously at that age they were like well above where they should be. They actually struggled a little bit socially fitting in with their peers just because educationally they were much further ahead.
Sure.
um, but it paid off in the long run. They're both very successful young ladies. And it felt like a loss at the time, but looking back on it and knowing the school system that I put them into, I feel much less bad about it. We weren't in the inner city. We aren't. We're somewhere where, like, I have my teachers, my kids' teachers on text message. If I need something, I can reach out. It's that kind of rapport here. It's still very small town. Um, Everybody, if something happens, people band together here, so that it's different than a lot of places. So I don't feel so much like it was a loss. I feel very
Good.
much like it was people who genuine in our community who genuinely care about kids have been with my children, and that counts for a lot.
Good. This that I could see how that could kind of tear you up. Like I told myself I was gonna, I told myself I was gonna homeschool you, and I just now I'm going back on my word, and I just can't do it for X, Y, and Z. But in the end, like it all works out, kind of thing.
Yeah, it messed with me a little bit when I was younger. I've reached this place of just being like, it is what it is. There's power in letting go. You just kind of got to just ride the waves. You can't control everything. And there
Yeah.
are some things that you're going to have to sacrifice. And you're like, no, I don't want to give that up. But, maybe you need to. Maybe there's a reason for it. I don't know exactly what that reason was. But I do know they told me that like was never going to read and write, and he's going to graduate with a diploma. Don't just do your best and don't beat yourself up. Work as a team. If you've got a team that can work with you and cares about your kids, like go all in, give it everything you've got, and work together. Teamwork's important. It's underrated as well.
Teamwork and naps.
Teamwork and naps, man. That's what keeps the world going.
That's funny. So your can you go a little bit in depth on your rabbits?
Okay.
Like what kind of what kind of breed of rabbit do you have? What kind, like what's your like breeding program, or and how long have you had rabbits?
The rabbits came to us really unexpectedly and really unintentionally. We have a very large New Zealand meat rabbit buck, and he is albino, and he's got an incredibly great and gentle personality. Um, we did have another New Zealand meat rabbit for him to breed with, but she actually passed away, and I don't know what killed her. And that really
Hmm.
bothered me. I never figured that out. So we hadn't planned to get any more. The buck came to us from the kid's grandma. She had him. She didn't want him. Take him or we're gonna eat him. And Susie, of course, is, oh God, don't eat my rabbit. So boom, we have a rabbit. Then we ended up having someone give us a lop-eared rabbit. So she's a bunny. I mean, she's not a meat rabbit. She's little, just little thing. Sweet as can be, absolutely in love with this New Zealand meat rabbit. And so we let them breed and have a litter. And we ended up with 5 beautiful, healthy albino babies, and one that was colored like the mama and didn't make it.
Oh,
So we don't intend to breed her anymore. I would like to get another New Zealand for him to breed with eventually, but honestly, at this point, the rabbit thing is kind of on the back burner. I don't care for the taste of rabbit. I would much rather be
Sure.
raising chickens. I much prefer that. But they're there because if things ever reach that point, we're going to eat rabbit, and that's just how it is. Um, Thankfully, the babies are big enough that we could raise them to eat them. I don't know what bunny would taste like. I have no idea. So,
Bony, probably.
right. So
They're
soft.
already
Oh, the
bony.
fur. The fur is so soft on those, though. Could you imagine the pillows you could make? I'm just saying. So soft. Terrible. Oh,
Slippers.
slippers. Yes.
Put them on your feet every day.
Yep.
That's funny.
But I would recommend rabbits for people who are starting. They're an easy one to keep. If you just keep up with them, make sure they're taken care of, food and water, a pen to be in, and you usually can go do pretty well with them. They're a pretty stable animal. They don't require a lot of veterinary care or anything like that. They're pretty easy. They're pretty easy to deal with. Although I did hear that you cannot live on rabbit alone. So make sure you've got a garden.
I think it's because of the fat, because they're so lean.
Yeah, there's no fat. In order
Yeah.
to get them to gain weight, then they just get a little fat at their neck. They get a fat pooch right here, and they don't grow. They don't like get fat in the body. So
That's weird.
yeah.
I didn't know that, because I have seen that on like those those New Zealand ones before.
Yep.
So
That's how you know you've got a fat, healthy rabbit. They got a big old double chin. I'm like, yeah, I'm feeling that all day, man. Me too.
that's funny.
Oh yeah.
So you're gonna try to get out of rabbits and move into chickens. Is your infrastructure at the place you're renting set up for that?
Well, the rabbits and the chickens could basically, the pens that we have set up for the rabbits could very easily be transitioned into chickens. For right now, we're going to stay with rabbits until we get to a bigger place. I don't want to raise chickens here. I don't feel like I could give them what they deserve and raise the kind of chickens. I don't want to have to buy a lot of feed for my chickens. I prefer to free range my chickens. I don't mind to supplement, but they need to be out eating natural, healthy stuff. We can't really provide that for them here. We're on a half acre. We're renting. I don't even know. That's a line I haven't crossed with my landlord. So I'm not 100% sure that I want to cross. Oh, that wasn't a rooster. I don't know what you heard. I don't want to do that. I don't think they would have a problem with it, but I don't feel like I could give more than maybe 3 hens a decent existence with the current setup that we have. Now, we do have a wonderful setup for rabbits. They have a big, beautiful run. They've got lovely hutches. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. They're living the life. You have no idea. Spoiled little things. But yeah, chickens right now, that's going to have to wait for a little bit. So is a greenhouse, which is really making me sad. I need more land.
just an acre and a half.
That's it.
Just
That's
an
all I
acre and a
need.
half. Yep.
Yeah. I could give me an acre and watch what I could do. But it needs to be mine. That's the problem that we're running into now, is I don't want to have to ask for permission to do what I want to do.
Right.
If we owned this plot, it would be set up very, very differently, because I wouldn't have to care what anyone's opinions or thoughts or, hey, you can't do that. I would just do it.
Sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That is like talking to my brother. My little brother wanted to put in a fence, and he needed to get for his house, and he needed to get a permit from the city and blah, blah, blah. I just rolled my eyes, and it's like, yeah, I built a shed out of pallets and I didn't ask anybody.
Yeah, you didn't have to ask a soul. And we do a lot of that as it is. We we have a big compost heap in the back. We cultivate manure, is what we call it, the rabbit manure, because it's a nice cold fertilizer. So it makes fantastic compost, makes just your garden will love it. That's another good perk to the rabbits. They do have cold fertilizer for days. So,
right.
And so we do have that set up. And, I think they actually kind of get a kick out of us. That's really what I think. I think they kind of like us. I know I met there was a worker that had come in, and he saw our garden, and this was from our rental company. And he was like, oh my gosh, this is great. And he'd never seen a loofah before. So I gave him a
Mm.
loofah and I said, go home, let this dry out and peel it and all that and save your seeds and all. So he comes back like 2 days later with a bag full of Scotch bonnet peppers, which was really sweet. But what do you do with a bag full of Scotch bonnet peppers? But he was like, here, I wanted to share. And so, it's like, okay, like there are other people like us out there, and
Yeah.
it's wonderful. There needs to
I
be more people with small gardens, in my opinion.
I agree. I I don't grow loofah. I have a buddy that does. He lives down in Alabama, and he's like, you need like 120 growing days to grow a loofah, and I'm like, maybe got 100, and so they're really not for me. But man, they look weird, and you like open it up and like just dump it out, and like all those seeds just fall like right out of the middle. That's so weird.
They do. They do. And they're wonderful because you can use them for everything from washing yourself to washing the dishes. Those things are amazing. They come in handy. I've used them a million times in a million different ways. And every time I'm like, this was really worth growing. So we're not doing them this year, though. I had one that came up I started a 4-pack because they take over the earth. They're just
Oh,
vines for days. They're huge vines. And so I only started 4. One came up and I planted it out, and a hailstorm came through and took it out. And so
oh
I went,
no.
okay, well, it's okay because I still have some I haven't shucked from last year. I haven't peeled and cut up, and I dip mine in bleach water and then air dry them to just make sure that they're completely sanitized before I store them.
Sure.
So I'm not worried about it, but it was pretty cool that somebody hadn't seen loofah before and I ended up getting a bag of Scotch bonnet peppers out of it.
Yeah, that is pretty funny. So what are some things that you have tried that have worked well? So like the rabbit poop has worked well, the raised
Yeah.
beds have worked well. Um, the rabbits are working well, but they're just not a good fit for you because you just don't
Yeah, we're
like the
just not
taste,
going
and
to
that's
eat them.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was not a problem finding homes for them, but I don't know how long it would take before I saturated the market in our little bitty town. So I don't plan to continue churning out buns until we need to. We do have 2 females now and a male, but what has worked really, really well in my garden, it sounds completely nuts, but it's electro gardening, basically. And what we do is take copper wire and we wrap them around our stakes that are going in the garden. So we grew like 12-foot tall okra last year, and we cured the okra stalks over the winter to use as stakes in the garden this year. And we've taken those and wrapped them with the copper wire all the way up them. And then you stick them, you want to plant them at least 8 inches in the ground. So like your stake needs to be really down in there. And then you're just going to leave the top up. And basically what it does is pulls free ions out of the air and like reintroduces them to your soil. We use a lot of iron in our beds. We don't realize it when you're using your shovel and stuff, you're using steel and stuff. It messes with the magnetics in the earth every
Hmm.
time you stick metal into the soil. So what this does is help rebalance the electromagnetics within the ground. And I know that last year my loofah I had 2 pods, and I planted a stake. I saw a video about it, and I planted one of the stakes, and we ended up harvesting 27 off of that plant. My what were they called? That my eggplant last year was producing into November, the end of November. I was still pulling eggplant last year, and abundant. That like each plant would have like 5 or 7 on them. I mean, we were drowning in eggplant.
That's a
You
lot of
should see my
eggplant. Yeah.
yeah. You should see my potato bed this year. I mean, that thing is boom, and it's because it's in a raised bed, and we wrapped the copper wire down and ran it into the soil on the 4 posts of the bed. Just taking off, goes like mad. My cabbage is massive.
Okay, I gotta look this up. Electro
Look up
gardening.
electro gardening. Yeah,
Okay,
I believe that's what
so
it's called.
so you need what, like a ground rod, and then you need to then wrap the copper wire around the plant itself to like kind of.
No, you don't even want to put the copper on the plant. A lot of plants don't like the direct contact with copper.
Okay.
um You can, like, if you have it wrapped around the stake and say you want to use that stake to like tie your tomato up to. My tomatoes were completely fine with that. But if you like were to like say wrap the copper wire around the plant itself, they really don't like that.
Okay. So
In
some
my
of them, it looks
experience.
like there's like a cone shape off of the ground rod. Does
You
that look
can,
right?
you really don't, you can do all of that. You can make it as fancy as you want, but I'm telling you, just simply wrapping the copper around that and sticking it into the ground. Last year, my rods were maybe 3, maybe 4 foot tall. This year, they're 12 foot tall. I'm really excited to see what happens. But just having a
Your
short
ground
one.
rods are 12 feet tall.
Hmm.
Holy
Yeah.
smokes! What are you using for ground rods?
My cured okra stems from last season. We pulled them and cured
Oh,
them over the
okay.
winter and then
I
wrapped
see.
them. Yeah.
So
They
so
make
there's like a
terrific.
solid rod in the dirt, and then there's like an antenna almost like that goes up into the
I'm telling you,
air.
it's really this simple. Just take your whatever your garden stake is that you're using. I don't care if it's bamboo. Use wood. I don't care if it's an old tobacco stake, okra stake, and simply take. What we do is my husband works on pressure washers, and so he brings home any like little pieces of wire, whatever that's left over, and he strips them for me, and that's all we use. We don't just use them individually. We do put them together in bundles of 5 or 10, however much you've got, so 5 or 10 strands, and then we wrap that. You can also use a thicker piece of copper, but we just wrap that around the rod and plant the rod 8 inches deep at least, and then have the rest of it sticking in the air. That's it.
Huh.
I'll take a picture and throw it on Twitter for
All
you
right.
in the next couple of days. But that's it. I know it sounds simple and it sounds like, oh, this is absolutely hokum, right? Try it. Let your
I
mind be
gotta try
blown.
it. I
You got
gotta
to
try
try
it.
it. Try it and report back your findings. You will be
I
like,
will.
this is cool. It's neat. Yeah,
I'll.
it's like,
Yeah.
that's why I said it's one
I'm
of those
curious.
hokum ones.
You know what? Whatever. If it just good vibes, right?
Good vibes. Sing to your plants. Pet on them. Tell them they're pretty. They like it. They just treat them like it's a woman. Good girl. You're beautiful. That's all you got to do.
That's funny. Good.
Oh, I wish I was kidding.
Whatever you got to do, right? To
Absolutely.
get your eggplant running. What's some stuff that didn't work?
Smoking anywhere near my garden. I smoke cigarettes.
Smoking? Oh,
Do
okay.
not smoke in your garden. Do not smoke in your garden. Do not smoke in your garden. Tobacco carries tomato blight. So when you smoke in
Oh.
your garden, you can inadvertently give tomato blight to your tomatoes. You really do not want to do that. It will. People think they're getting blossom end rot. It is not. You have given your garden or given your tomatoes a blight from your tobacco use. Wash your hands. Consider putting on, like, maybe getting yourself a garden shirt. I got some extra big scrub tops that I can just throw on over whatever I'm wearing. Wash up, go out. You got giant pockets to stuff full of whatever you've harvested, and that way I'm keeping my nicotine away from it. So hopefully it works. If
Good
not,
tip.
I'm gonna have to quit the darn things.
This
I need to do
isn't an
anyway.
episode of The Simpsons where they sell tobacco or whatever.
Oh, isn't that funny? I remember that.
Yeah, they crossbred tomatoes and tobacco, and it was like highly addictive tomatoes, essentially.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting because and people don't know that really, but a lot of diseases that tobacco can carry will directly affect your tomato plants. So be careful. Let me see. I'm trying to remember what else. I made notes.
I like it. Prepared.
Oh yeah, I've been totally stoked about this. Um, what worked? What didn't work? Where are you at? Yeah, I'm trying to think what else hasn't worked. Oh, I know. Okay, there it is. Like planting your garden too early. Be careful about that. Make sure that when you're starting, that you don't throw out the wrong things at the wrong time. A lot of people get really excited, and as soon as some of the starts come out, they've got them out. Well, there's usually a frost or two coming, and it's very dependent upon your area. But don't let the little boogers, like bring them home and put them on your windowsill and vibe with them for a bit. Do not go out and throw them in the ground until you know you're past your first frost, because I have buggered up some seasons doing that. Waiting to harvest my tomatoes until September is not fun. Although it was nicer canning in September, I will say that. Far less hot.
Was, yeah.
Let's see. Trying to think what else hasn't worked. Don't beat yourself up if you have to use something that's non-organic. For the first time at this garden, I had to use granules to get rid of cutworms. I couldn't, nothing was killing them. And I mean, you'd take a shovel full of dirt and there'd be 3 cutworms in it. They destroyed my, all my gourds last year, just wrecked them. But it seemed like overnight. So if you have to do something like that, do it to the bare minimum. Don't beat yourself up. This is still better than getting it out of the grocery store. Even with that.
Agreed.
And then we use a lot of, if we're going to have to use a pesticide, I try to use insecticidal soap. I've also used diatomaceous earth. That seems to help with some things. But
yeah, it's very multi-purpose.
It is. It's a great thing. I think for a lot of people, it can be really intimidating, and you're going to find things that don't work all the time. So just remember them and move on. You got to find the things that work, because there are probably more things that don't work than do. There's a lot you can do and go wrong. It's easy to over fertilize. It's easy to over water. That's a chronic issue. I've learned that you let your plants suffer a little bit. Let them dig deep. The deeper they go, the better they'll do. Just like a human, sometimes you kind of got to go through it to get strong. So do they.
That's true. It's very true. If you baby them too much, they'll just won't make it. What's the a lot of people talk about, I think it's Mark Shepard's stun method, sheer and total utter neglect or something, like whatever.
Ignore them babies. Yeah.
Some people like it works for him, doesn't work for other people. So, I mean, you might have to help them along a little bit, but.
Well, it's really dependent on where you are. It really is.
Yeah.
What are your growing conditions? Are you going to get the rain that they need to be able to do that? Or are you going to have to supplement? You really have to take it by where you're at, by how you grow. So figure out what your grow zone is and look at the things that will work. And if you look around, people, it's all over online. Just take a few minutes, Google,
Yeah. I once ordered a couple of giant sequoia saplings here just because I thought it would be really funny 100 years from now that we have these giant trees, and somebody's like, who planted giant sequoias here? Well, I don't think they would have survived even if I didn't screw it up, because I didn't it was like my first time like ordering plants in the mail, and like the roots were like all like bound up. I didn't like fan them out, and so they just didn't take. And we're one zone too cold, I think, so that wouldn't have worked. And also we don't get enough rain. So
they take a ton of rain.
They do take a ton of rain. So I don't think they would have worked at all. I
Probably
mean,
not, but it would have been.
But man, that would have been really funny.
Oh,
to have
absolutely.
giant sequoias on the property.
You got me wanting to plant some. I bet they would grow down here in Appalachia. I bet there are places they could in the Smokies where it's all foggy and steamy.
Good. I think it's also like an elevation thing, because they're up pretty high. The giant sequoias. Yeah, it's like, I want to say it's like something like 8,000 feet is where they're growing.
I have never been. I would love to go. That's something I would love to see. I've never actually seen them in real life.
We just went in September because the year before they had all like that fire risk, and so like they were wrapping those trees in like fire blankets, essentially trying to save them. My wife's like, we should go before something happens to them and like they're gone. And who knows, right? They'll throw millions of dollars at saving these trees because it's like a ton of revenue for California, right? But yeah, they're crazy. It's like they don't even look real. They're so big.
Wow.
And we were watching the craziest thing that I learned. We were on this little like boardwalk. It's called Trail of the Cedars. And there's like, it's not like the biggest ones, but there's like a bunch of them along this boardwalk. And there's like little placards every so many yards. And there was one where it was like this stump here or whatever you're looking at is from a tree that had fallen in 1971 or something. And there was like a park service that was like, they were there, right? Because that's not that long ago. It's 50 years. The Park Service has been around longer than that. And so they had heard it crash, and they said it sounded like thunder when it broke.
Oh, I bet.
And so they ran over, like, they, after the tree fell, they came and investigated, and there was just water gushing out of this tree, like gallons and gallons and gallons of water gushing out of this tree. And the other crazy thing that they said about this is that they went to put their hand on it on the inside. It was ice cold.
Wow.
Yeah, so weird. And so
That
like
is so
all
weird.
that,
I wonder
yeah, all that
why.
storage of water, I don't know. Like they're just must be like very well insulated, and
Yeah.
maybe the groundwater that's being like feeding them is that cold
Well,
or something. I don't know.
I've heard that when trees get filled with water like that, what's happened is that up in their higher branches, they actually have one that like maybe broke away and pulled away in such a way that water could rain into the cavity, because they are hollow inside, but they're not supposed to be full
Sure.
of water like that. And so I can only imagine how much water that thing must have been holding for it to finally break like that. And I wonder if it was that cold because the tree was dead. I mean, there would be
Maybe
nothing keeping
it
it
was.
warm.
So I think the situation was that they had a really heavy rain that season, and then the high winds came, and so the ground was all saturated
Yeah.
and just took it out.
Far out. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I know they say that down here in Tennessee, they used to have trees so big that when the first settlers came in, they would actually just dig out the interior of the tree and live in them.
I can see that. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, could you know? Oh man, My Side of the Mountain, right? Like, yeah. I don't know if you've
Yeah,
ever read that book, but the kid in the
I've
book does
I've
that.
heard of it.
Read it to your kids; they'll love it.
My Side of the Mountain. What that sounds really familiar. I'm gonna write that down too.
Yeah, that was one I read to my kids a lot when they were growing up. So my kids turned out ridiculous and want me to make like acorn flour and stuff now. And I'm like, that's just the best thing ever. Like, y'all are grown-ups and, bringing me bags of acorns. Look, Mom, we can make acorn flour. Heck yeah, we can. Bring that in here.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to pick that up. So what's been the biggest challenge in homesteading that you faced?
Um, okay, so definitely creating or being able to grow enough food to actually feed my family year round. We haven't reached that place, and that is
Sure.
difficult when you rent. It's hard when you don't have just the sheer size garden that you need to produce enough. We eat well off of it all year round, but it's just not quite enough, and that's been frustrating, and probably the biggest challenge. The other challenge, it was like finding out we couldn't till here, and having to completely relearn a completely different way of gardening. I'd never done no-till gardening before. Now, I wish I'd known about it years ago because it's so much less labor. It's so much easier, with the machine. No, you just go out there and we laid down paper and cardboard and leaves and compost and dirt, and boom, done. Planting it. Happy-go-lucky garden. Um, I think that's probably been the most difficult. Um, and trying to be respectful that this isn't our home and that we can't do maybe all the things that we'd want to do because it's not our land. And so being respectful of who owns it, that's been difficult. Now, when we were homesteading when I was younger, and the kids were little, calling the animals was my least favorite part because I have a friend, or Yeah, look at me, I'm ridiculous. I'm out there, oh my babies, petting my rabbits, you know. So that would I'd have to say be probably the hardest part is culling anything. But hey, you do what you got to do to survive, and humanity did that forever. And go to the grocery
Right.
store and get it all wrapped in plastic and full of God knows what.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, and who knows what that rabbit ate that got like that, to put it in the plastic, to put it in the store, who
Yeah.
knows? Full of
If
junk.
you have Well, and think about like if you go to the store and you buy a piece of beef. I don't know how long it's been since you've eaten grocery store meat, but let me just tell you how disgusting it really truly is.
It's
It
slimy.
cooks
It's got
this
like,
stuff, it's crap, it's cooking out of it. And I asked the butcher, I was like, what is this crap coming out of our food, man? And he said that to the best of his understanding, it's because they are now feeding our cattle a primarily all soy diet. And he said it's just soy pouring
yuck.
out of it. And I'm like,
That's
man, that's
disgusting.
giving our little boys boobies and stuff. Like, like let's not do this. Like, this is bad. We don't need to be eating all that soy. We're not designed, our bodies aren't designed to do that. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
sorry. You can
No, that's
you can
fine. That's
edit as you
funny.
see fit.
No, that's fine. For people that want to know more about that, you have to look up phytoestrogens in soy. So that's
Yeah.
that's what you're getting at there.
Like we're getting soy out of real meat. Like you cannot tell me that there is not some agenda to like I don't know what they're doing to the American diet, but you can go into Europe and eat the same diet that we eat here in Europe and you will lose weight.
Yeah.
Here, like there it's full of poison and crap and chemicals and every time we figure out that hey, this is bad, they just change its name and change where they
Yeah.
put it on the box. It's not fair. We're playing with a handicap. We need to know where our food's coming from. We need to know what's in our food. It can take the time to grow a garden and then go get a carrot from the grocery store and get a carrot out of your bed and taste the difference. And you can do that with any vegetable, and the same thing with go find a reputable cattle grower, raiser, whatever, and then go and compare your meats. It's insane the difference. And if people will take the time to do that, I just think there would be more people out in their front yards putting in a garden. I cannot understand why this does not hit priority like way up here for a lot of people. It's like priority number one for us. Like this is important.
Yeah. They don't really need to do the Beyond Burger or plant-based meats when they're just feeding the cows soy. I mean,
Yep.
they're halfway there, so
They're achieving the same
who
end.
cares?
Yeah.
They don't care.
No, they don't
They
care
pretty
at
much
all.
they got half of what they want, and that's good enough for them, right? So,
Yeah.
do you
Sure
remember
enough.
early internet videos? This might have even been on YouTube, where like they would pour, and I don't even remember if this is true. They would pour Coca-Cola on pork, and like all these worms would come out. Do you remember these videos?
I do.
This
Do.
like I don't remember if that ever came out as true or false, but man, that's weird.
I can tell you that we tried it and we did not get worms out of ours.
Well, that's probably good.
Yeah, but of course my kids were, pouring Coke on it. But that was also the period they went through. They were where they were like taking the rust off of nails and being like, "Does anybody got a tooth?" I'm like, "No, everybody calm down, stop." Like,
Good.
so,
That's funny.
Yeah. Well, they learned that you can take rust off like the bumper of a car and stuff. So like, I've got my kids out rubbing Coke on the headlights and stuff. It was ridiculous.
No, it's not a soft drink. It's a cleaning solution.
It's nasty. It's terrible for when it can do that, don't put it in your body. Just
Kinda. Yeah.
like
Bad.
I don't know. I'm big on some water and some coffee. Those are my two things. We do a lot of tea as well, but like I don't with soft drinks and stuff, it is icky. They're kind of good.
Yeah. So what's the best part about homesteading then? Just the food?
I think so. I know it sounds silly, but I'm just gonna be really shallow here. It tastes so much better.
That's fun.
Like it just tastes better.
I feel better eating it.
Oh yeah.
That's for sure.
I know that I will it can be the difference between me having a really nasty flare up versus maybe not having a flare up at all. If I'm eating crap, I mean, I'll lose hand mobility. I already have a difficult time speaking, especially in the evenings, which is what I think it's so funny that we're doing this in the evening because it's not my best time of day. But it really directly affects all of those things for me. And so if I keep my diet relatively healthy, it makes a big difference. It makes a huge
Sure.
difference for me. And my feet don't burn as badly. I don't have as nearly as many shock sensations and all the fun shit that goes along with MS. And sorry about cussing, but
It
MS makes you want
happens.
to cuss. So yeah,
It's
it makes
it's
a big
it's fine.
difference. Yeah.
What I think is funny is that people that don't have those conditions are like, well, I feel fine eating blah 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 blah. But like
They
they should
think
almost
they
look
feel
at
fine.
that's true. They're not very in tune with how they feel, but also why can't we look at some of these people that are more sensitive, such as
Mhm.
yourself, as like canary in the coal mine? We're like, well,
Yes.
if you feel like crap eating that stuff, like maybe like even if I do feel fine, maybe I should at least, do better than what I'm doing. So
Well, and it's like so many people are out of touch with their food. Think about how many kids have been raised eating McDonald's chicken nuggets and they don't know any different. They felt like crap their whole lives. They have no idea they can even feel any better because they've never felt better. They never had that diet to be like, oh, wow, I can tell a difference. That's why I just encourage people to try because you'll start out and you'll grow like one plant and you'll be like, oh, my baby, and you'll take care of it and it'll satisfy something inside of you. First off, it'll get you right here in the soul. And then you'll taste it and you will be like, I did this. And then you'll have this sense of satisfaction and you'll realize that, wow, this actually tastes good and this makes me feel good. And then next year you've got 2 or 3 plants or maybe a whole container garden. Start and do what you can do wherever you are. If you're in an apartment, grow a container garden. If you're renting, see if your landlord will let you put a garden in. If you're own your own property, for the love of Pete, go out and play in the dirt. Just do it. You will not regret it. What's the worst that's going to happen? That you go out there and be like, well, that didn't work. Oh well, I got some vitamin D from being in the sunshine, some fresh air. Got my feet in the dirt. Like got my hand. Got some dirt under my nails. I feel like a human again. Like unplug. Be in nature for a minute. Do it and just see. What's the worst that's going to happen? You give up a few hours of your life. You're going to do it
uh,
anyway. What, you going to go
yeah,
troll Twitter longer? I mean, come on, get out here and play the dirt.
go play in the dirt. I like that.
Yeah.
I love that last part. For the love of Pete, go play in the dirt. If it, I might put that on a shirt or something like that. That I like that.
Absolutely. With my blessing.
That's really really funny. Um, that almost that whole segment that you just said wraps up the like, what would you tell people that want to get started? Like
Yeah.
that, all of that.
Yes. And from the bottom of my heart. And if you have a question, find me, DM me. I'll talk. We'll yak. Find somebody that loves it. They will talk with you endlessly. Oh my gosh, they will just never shut up, actually. So be careful. But but go find someone. They'll teach you. You can learn this. This is a learned skill. It takes practice, it takes time, it takes effort. You're literally going to get what you give in your garden. So give it a little bit, see what you get.
That is one thing that I really
Excuse me.
love about the farming community, like gardening community, all of it is that they're so willing to share the information that they have, and they just
Absolutely.
want to see other people do what they do. And but you also got to fail on your own too. Like you're not going to
Oh
get it
yeah.
right, and so you're going to have to screw it up. You just got to stick with it and keep going, keep trying.
Well, and I'll let people in on a little secret. If you grow something and you kill it, the dirt is still good. Pull that sucker out of there and put something else in it. Like, ta-da, try again. For real. And put it in a pot. And then you can take the dirt with you. Take it inside. Grow something inside. If bugs get to your stuff, but you really want some spinach, plant it in a pot. Put it in your windowsill. Start small, but just start.
I love that.
Yeah.
There Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to talk about?
Yeah, I do want to say one thing.
Yeah,
And it almost, I don't even know how to bring it in, so I'm just going to say it.
sure,
But there's a lot of freedom in Jesus, and I think that that is something that has nothing necessarily to do with gardening, but I just felt like I should share it. There's a lot of
sure.
joy there, and there's a lot of peace. So that's something else that people can find when they're out in their gardens and when they're doing this. It brings you closer to God. You have you reestablish a connection. And I don't know how else to say that, but it's important. And it's unsung and unappreciated by a lot of people. But I have felt so strongly this last bit that if you have known the Lord, He is calling His children back to Him right now. Listen to that call too. That's important. And that's
Well,
that. That's
I
it.
was gonna share a John Muir quote. He says, "I'd rather be in the mountains thinking of God than in church thinking about the mountains." So it's kind of like your
Yes.
time in the garden, kind of like your
Oh,
mountain
but it
here.
is. Yes, exactly. And God is there. God is everywhere. Like I know the Bible says, for not the forsake not the gathering of the saints together. And I get that. That does mean, yes, we should gather, we should go to church, but that's not where God resides. God's here. This is your temple. Take care of your temple. He gave you this. It's a gift. He gave you the ability, the knowledge, the understanding. You can go out and grow and take care of yourself. And God will help you with all that and so much more, because it's, how do I put this? He can bring a closeness to you that you can find Him in all things. But take care of your temple, take care of your body, and remember to appreciate where it all comes from. Appreciate where it all comes from. We're not just some little mistake that blipped here, and here we are. We are created. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. So, yeah, I guess that's that.
I love it. That's
Cool.
that's excellent. Where can people find you and ask you questions on milking goats or dealing with rabbits or gardening or any of it?
I am only on Twitter. That is my only social media that I use, but you can find me under Vanima Moonbeam. And I'm sure once you find Vanima Moonbeam, you'll look at my page and go, "Oh yeah, that's her." This is pretty much all just garden stuff. But
Yes.
yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time with me and sharing all your stories. I've really loved this.
This was super fun. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for letting me mourn my kitty yesterday. And I couldn't have come on here. My eyes were so swollen and puffy, and I'm still swollen and puffy. But you know what? Like you said earlier, I'm real and I'm here, and this is it. So,
Yes. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry about your cat. I don't think that was I picked up on that. I must have missed that last part that she actually did pass.
she
I
did.
thought I'm sorry about that. Um,
You know what's really cool though is we buried her, and we buried a lily over top of her, and it started blooming today, and it didn't look anywhere close to blooming when we planted it. And I was just like, "Oh, that is such a gift. That's kind of cool." So
it's the little things like that.
it really is. It really is. It's all the spaces in between.
And all the spaces in between. Well, again, I appreciate your time tonight. I'm glad we could finally make this happen. So
Me too.
look forward to following more of your adventures as we go.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Thank you for your time.
I am Matt DeRozier of FarmHopLife. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and visit farmhoplife.com.
Inside of the city, the people are crazy, out of their minds, they ain't got a clue. We gone away, headed west for Montana, left family and friends, all I got now is you. We both got new jobs, a house and a homestead, thinking this was the life, all that there'd be. After our firstborn, you had to stay home. That's when the work got in the way. get drunk in an RV. Send us a message and